but his family life has not been allowed to predominate over his sadhana, and his sadhana does not get priority over his family life. A judicious balance between the two has been the hallmark of his life, and he has been successful in both. When he is involved in his sadhana, he looks different. Then he looks a complete sadhaka, unaffected by his domestic life. But when we see him as a householder, it is hard to believe that he could be sadhaka and of such eminence. The more I heard about him, the keener I was to meet him, and this opportunity came my way on the 5th day of the convention when he was relaxing in the afternoon. I had sent a request to him through his disciple whom I had met earlier. I told Srimaliji that I was a humble sadhaka and had been groping in the dark for the last 15 years. I did learn something, but that was but a drop in the ocean. I told him that I had been trying to see him for the last few days, but he was so busy throughout the day that it had not been possible. I requested him to give me a little of his precious time, as I wished to seek his guidance and blessings to achieve my life's ambition. Srimaliji gave me a few moments from his rest time in the afternoon. I cherish the memory of this meeting to this day. I was at last able to meet this great man face to face, to place my doubts before him and seek his guidance. I told him that I was a successful student of law and had a stint in journalism, but that I was not interested in it at all, and I had decided to devote the rest of my life to learning tantric sadhana. I told him that I had been trying to learn it for the last 15 years, but this convention convinced me that what I had learnt amounted to nothing. Even if I lived for 100 years, I would be able to achieve nothing. I questioned him about Tantra, Mantra and the leftist methods. I remember the authority and affection with which he explained them even to this day. The more I heard him, the greater was my realization of the depth of his knowledge. I saw how great this man was, and yet how humble. Only such a man could provide guidance to the coming generations. Something in me told me that the Guru I had been looking for, who could help me achieve my heart's desire, was right in front of me. He was the only one who could clear my doubts, since he had the capacity to give. Hesitatingly I said that I wished to stay with him, and that if he found the potentials of a worthy disciple in me, I would like nothing better than to spend the rest of my life at his feet. Srimaliji replied, "It is not possible to become a disciple so soon, because it is not sufficient merely to utter the word Guru, teacher and Shishya, disciple. Until one is prepared with all his heart to surrender himself, it is not possible to be a Shishya. One should have the correct attitude. The word Guru is not an ordinary one. A great responsibility goes with it, and unless the Guru is able to discharge his responsibility to the Shishya fully, there is no point in his accepting to be his Guru. The whole business of being a Guru then becomes meaningless. I do not have any desire to leave behind me a row or army of Shishyas. In my view, it is better to have a few disciples, but worthy ones. I do not have any objection to accepting you as a Shishya, but when your heart and not your words alone make that request, I shall certainly accept you. The words of the heart are more sincere, correct and authentic than the words of the mouth alone. Whenever you are in that position, you will find my doors open and you will be able to come to me. What he had said was right. I had not been able to shape as a Shishya. The basis of being a Shishya is complete surrender to the Guru, and until a person is wholly and truly prepared for this, the word Shishya has no meaning. I wanted to prove my worthiness as a disciple. I decided then and there that one day I would have the honor of being Srimaliji's Shishya. I told him that I was surely not worthy of being his disciple at that moment, that I did not have the requisite qualifications as yet. But I said I desired to stay with him for a few days after the convention was over. I said I was sure that he would not reject my request. Srimaliji looked keenly into my eyes and seemed to have assessed me in a moment. I felt as if he had seen me through and through and knew all that I thought were my secrets. For a moment, I shivered like a leaf. I was in a state of uncertainty. Would I get his permission or not? If he said no, all the roads to my future would be closed for me. If he agreed, I would be able to stay with him for some days and be steeped in the fragrance of his personality. I would try to prove my worthiness by my efforts. Successful or unsuccessful, I should convince him of being worthy to be his Shishya. Srimaliji looked at me and smiled. He gave me his permission to stay with him for a few days. For me, this was no less than achieving success in a sadhana. I felt I had acquired something significant, that I had reached my destination. I felt hopeful of completing something I had been groping after. My destination seemed clear. It was time for the assembly. I took leave of him and came out. At that moment, I felt that I was the most fortunate man in the world. My heart was beating fast with joy. I was walking in the air. My whole being was enthralled and my eyes filled with tears. That day, for the first time in my life, I realized how much one could gain even by the proximity to a great man. The fragrance exuded by his being created a wonderful environment. The 10 days of the convention were full of agitation, but they were unique as during this period the greatest sadhakas demonstrated great sadhanas and explained how new mysteries could be unveiled through them. Until now, Shama sadhana was considered extremely difficult and complicated, but Vaichakshi Baba performed it in a new way. The results were there for all to see. Similarly, the simplest way of performing Urdhva Gamana Kriya was presented. Trijata Agori gave practical demonstration of Sanjeevini Vidya, bringing the dead back to life. I had read in the Ramayana that when the final battle between Rama and Ravana came to an end, Rama invoked Lord Indra and requested him to bring back to life all the monkeys who had died in the battle. Indra was pleased. The monkeys were not only brought back to life, they were freed from all disease. Indra had learned this art from Brihaspati. I had read that both Brihaspati, the teacher of the gods, and Shukracharya, the teacher of the demons, were masters in this art. I had not imagined that this art existed in our country now. It did exist in some bygone age, but then had disappeared over the centuries. But Trijata demonstrated it. He obtained from a nearby village the body of a man who had died the previous day and right in front of us, he brought him back to life. Trijata had used the leftist method to perform the Sanjeevani Prakriya. Later I learned that it had a mantric method too. It was Trijata Agori who told me that Srimaliji was an expert in both the methods and that he had tried it several times. I saw Akashagamana Prakriya too for the first time at this convention. Through this Prakriya process, one can become lighter than the air and walk in the sky. This is a mantric practice, but it has a leftist tantric method to it too, which was elucidated by Burbuah Baba. Through the process of pranayama, he made his body lighter than the air and left everyone spellbound as he raised his body 10 feet above the ground and walked in the air. He elucidated this prakriya, illustrating it practically.